Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, Chief Monkey of Wall Street Oasis, and this is Monkey to Millions, a show where you get a front row seat as I mentor young students and professionals to try and help them break into their dream jobs. In the first cohort, you'll meet 4 students, all preparing for intense job interviews while trying to also balance a personal life and schoolwork. The goal of this show is to shine a light on the struggles of trying to break into competitive positions with a non traditional background and to give you a roadmap for your own success. My hope is that as you get to know these 4 impressive students, you are inspired to dream big. Remember, these are real people and this is their true story. Let's get to it. In Grace's third session, we find out that she has an investment banking internship interview just a few days away. It's clear that her new resume is working well since most people getting interviews for this role are sophomores or juniors, so that's exciting. She's still just a freshman. So in this session, we also review 5 of the most common technical interview questions for investment banking, as well as give her some homework to be ready with 7 stories for the fit portion of the interview. But first, hear from Grace over the previous few weeks leading up to this session.
Hello. So on Friday, I went to the event or conference that the Women's Association of Venture and Equity had here in the city, and there were students and women in private equity and venture capital here from all over the country. So I got to meet some really interesting people, and I even met one person with whom I was discussing the possibility of a 1 or 2 day a week internship during the spring semester at their office here in the city. So I'm following up with them on more information about that. And that would be a small firm that focuses on buying distressed credit. And then yesterday, I ended up actually being able to go to the private dinner that the co-founder of Varde had after her talk here at Fordham. She's a very impressive person and had a lot of great advice, so I'm very glad I was able to go to that. And then as for this week, I am continuing to send out LinkedIn invites, and I've even received some responses right away from people offering to do phone calls, so I'm already in the process of setting some of that up. Hello, so this is one of the last weeks of the semester, so the work is really piling up, and especially because I have family friends visiting the city the entirety of this coming weekend, I have several additional things I need to make sure to get done during the week that I won't have time to do over the weekend. That being said, there is on Wednesday this week what they call the Diversity and Inclusion Night here. So I'm one of about 50 or so students who are attending, and there will be about 30 or so people from a lot of the banks and financial firms there, mostly the, diversity, recruiting type positions or people at those banks. So people from Goldman, JP Morgan, Barclays, Citi, Morgan Stanley, a lot of the really big firms. So that should be a great opportunity to meet some people then. I have several phone calls and coffee meetings set up for the week as well. And then I'm also in the process of talking with one of the firms I met at the Women's Association of Venture and Equity event, I guess it was last week or the week before that, about the possibility of a spring semester internship since I have 1 day off in my schedule and then 1 or 2 afternoons off. So that would be a 1.5 day a week internship type position. They just opened their office in the city, so their New York location isn't that large. So it would be a pretty informal thing, but that because of that they could be really flexible with when I come in, which is good. So I'm in the process of figuring out the logistics of that and waiting to hear back from them on that. So that sounds promising too.
All right, so I just watched your kind of updates. It sounds like you had a conference and things went well, and you've kind of been in discussions for a few spring internships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's one firm that I met at the one conference that I've been talking with, and they just opened their office in the city. So it's not super organized yet. So anything I did with them over the spring would be a little more informal, but because of that, I'd probably have more flexibility, which would be good.
What's
Um,
is it investment bank? Investment bank?
no, it's I don't completely understand what they do,
Okay.
but I think they provide financing for a lot of private equity transactions.
hmm
So they're on that side of
So
things.
credit, like private equity
Mhm.
credit or whatever.
Yes.
So
And
they're,
then,
do you know what they're
uh,
called? Are they small? Like, are they
yeah,
big?
they're called backcast partners.
Back, back, BACK.
Mm-hmm. Backcast.
Back partners. Okay, cool. I'll take a look after and give you any thoughts I have. But yeah, it could just be a private equity credit, one of those companies that just works on like providing loans for private equity
Mm-hmm.
transactions. Okay, cool. So they're opening an office in New York. You talked to somebody who uh, works there. Was this at the Women's Finance Conference?
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. And so how did she like, was she talking to a lot of students, or did you feel like you had some sort of into getting an internship there? Because that would be,
I mean, I was just talking to her individually. So at the end, they kind of had a career fair thing where a lot of the firms there had tables set up,
okay.
and I was just walking around, and she wasn't really talking about internships to anyone, but I kind of brought it up saying I'm in the city, and just asked about spring internships.
Yeah.
She said they could definitely use the help.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I'm waiting to
great.
hear back from them. And then
Yeah, if you
the
get enough
other,
private equity related stuff on your resume, you never know. You
mhm,
could you could
right.
theoretically go straight to PE. Um,
hmm
but anyway, sorry, go ahead. What else was
And
going on?
then on Monday, I have an interview for a boutique investment bank.
Yeah.
And so they have a few Fordham alumni that work there. So
hmm
they take interns through our IB club at Fordham.
Okay.
And there's currently three Fordham students who are interning there. And so one of them will be leaving for the spring semester. So that's the person whose spot they're interviewing for now. And I've talked with him. So he's a junior. So I'm surprised I even got the interview because there are three interns now are all juniors.
Like
So,
after their junior summer.
well, no, they were there. I think most of them were there their sophomore summer, and then they've stayed through this part of their junior year.
And were they given like are they expected to get full-time offers when they finish after their junior summer?
It's not clear because the one intern is leaving now to intern somewhere else.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure.
Kind of a weird time that they're doing like a winter internship kind of thing. It's like I guess
hmm
because you guys are all in the city, it's a little bit different. You have more opportunities
Right.
to build your resume.
hmm
No, that's a huge advantage to be able to, you're in the city. If you can balance it with schoolwork and the whole networking thing, it can make your resume really stand out compared to
hmm
kids who are more regional cities. So if you can, I mean, the one thing I'd say is oftentimes if you're going to be going to this like credit PE shop that's just starting out in New York, a lot of the work is probably going to be really, it's tough. It's not going to be like
Right.
high impact work. You know what I mean? Um,
hmm
Ideally, you can at least be supporting somebody that is doing more of the analytical work and get that on your resume.
hmm
Uh,
Right.
but I mean, there's only so much you can do as an intern your freshman year, so it's
Right.
kind of expected that you're gonna have
hmm
more of the hey, go get coffee and that those types of role, those
Right.
types of jobs initially. Okay, so it sounds like that's great news. So when that interview on Monday, it's for a boutique investment bank. Do you have any indication, any thoughts about whether it's going to be behavioral, more like fit-based questions or technical questions, or have they not
hmm
given it?
So I talked with the person who is in the spot now that
Yeah,
I'm interviewing for, and he told me that so his team is that he works with is really just one associate and one MD, and that's it.
yeah.
Um, so his interview was first with the associate, and it was some technical questions, but he basically told me the questions that he remembers being asked,
hmm
and none of them were too deep and or anything.
Like walk me through a DCF or like
Just kind of basic things, just like what are the three types of
kind of
valuations.
okay.
Um, yeah, very like very basic. And then after that, he said it was just a conversation with the MD,
Do you
very
feel
conversational.
so? Did you use the new resume that we worked on to apply to this?
Yes.
Did Okay. Did you have interests? And remind me at the bottom of that.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so be ready to talk about those
Okay.
because they may be more curious and maybe just be like a more informal conversation. Just want to
hmm
see if they can like have a normal conversation with you and enjoy their time. Because really small places like this, it's often about if they like you or not, and like
hmm
you'll probably answer the whatever softball technical questions they ask you. Like you should be ready for walk me through DCF, why
Right.
banking, why the valuations. Um, they probably aren't going to give you any crazy brain teasers or whatnot.
hmm
Not like a trading role, but I don't know. Do you want to do like a little mock interview right now for like a technical mock interview and then maybe a little behavioral?
Okay.
Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I
Because then,
think so.
because I think like honestly, it might help me gauge where you are and give you some feedback versus.
hmm
Okay, let me pull up. I have so much stuff here
hmm
open,
Yeah,
but
so he gave me the 5 questions that he was asked. That he so I wrote those down. Um, and I guess the most complex one was if depreciation
went up $10. This
increases
is,
by
yeah,
X
this is
amount,
like
what's the
this.
effect?
So are you able to walk through that now? Are you comfortable?
I think so.
What if they changed it on you? So
In what way?
so what if it was slightly different? What if it was instead of decreased or increased depreciation by $10, it was the other direction and 20?
Um, yeah, I think I could. I think so.
So like I would do that when you get off, like
hmm
just walk through it mentally and then say it out loud in your head, like
Right.
what would happen,
hmm
go through all three statements because you shouldn't just assume it's always going to be the exact question that they give you or however he remembered
hmm
or recalled it. Um, what about like DC? Did he say walk me through a DCF?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was that walking through DCF, what makes a good comparable company, and then what are the 3 types of valuations, and then what is investment banking?
So what is investment banking?
hmm
Yeah. So this is going to be pretty, I mean, we can even just go through your answers for those right now
hmm
because I think it's probably the most likely thing you're going to be asked. So
hmm
should probably start there. So do you want to start with just what is investment banking and tell me what you were
hmm
thinking of how you structuring that answer?
hmm That's the one I've been struggling with the most, I think.
Hmm.
Um, because I know, I guess you could say like it's advising on raising of capital and business restructuring for institutions and governments, but I'm not sure if that encompasses everything. Or
Here,
I know it doesn't,
this is a
but
good thread. This is a good thread you should. Oh, sorry. I'm going to send you this thread. It's kind
okay.
of like just an overview, but like you could basically talk about what investment banks do. So you can see there's a lot of different types of divisions within an investment bank and different types of investment banks. So you can say there's, mergers and acquisitions, where you're advising, you're hired by companies to advise on the sale and purchase of other companies and other divisions.
hmm
There's leverage finance where you're issuing high yield debt to firms to help them fund corporate activities or other types of finance acquisitions.
hmm
Then you have the ECM or the capital markets, ECM and DCM, where you advise on like IPOs, capital raises, secondary offerings.
hmm
DCM is more like just structuring and raising new debt issuances.
Right.
And then like there's other niche divisions within a bank. So there's like sales and trading, there's restructuring as well. So restructuring is like
hmm
helping advise distressed companies.
Right.
And then there's different types of banks, ones that have like a balance sheet to work with where they can offer the financing as like a staple or add-on. And then there's others that are like pure advisory that
hmm
typically offer the financing. So like I would give some sort of answer like that where you're like going through the different divisions and what they do
Okay.
because then it shows you kind of get it. And especially for this smaller boutique, be like, I would definitely know what they do mostly. Do they do
They just do M&A advising, just
so like
advising.
for example for blah 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 company, this would be M&A, but there's other banks that do a variety of things,
hmm
it's not doesn't have to be just M&A.
hmm
I think it'd be good to show them that you have a kind of a full picture view of that answer of that
Okay.
question. Yeah, being like something generic like advising institutions and government. It's just very vague. I rather
Okay.
know that you know what each division does within an
Okay.
investment bank and show me that you know lots of different divisions. So
Hmm.
that link
Okay.
I sent you has like some of them. I'm looking through
Hmm.
this, see what else is there. Yeah, it's good. I think you could probably find some other stuff. There's also like industry and coverage groups. You can talk about how things are
Hmm.
structured that way. So sometimes
Right.
there's like a TMT group that specializes in technology, media, and telecom. Sometimes there's FIG or financial institutions group. Sometimes there's like a group specific in energy in the energy space.
Hmm.
Um, it'll be like more of a vertically integrated group rather than a horizontally like
Hmm.
product a coverage group versus just a specific function like an M&A group.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Yes.
So I would look at that and definitely at least be able to name those 5 divisions that are listed there with like
Hmm.
they do, and kind of just be like, and they do. Don't just say there's this, this, this. Say like what the bank actually does for their
Hmm.
clients and how they.
Okay.
So like I think that'll give them a good feeling that you understand fully what it is. So okay,
Okay.
so that's that one. What's the next one that you said, or one of them?
I guess the depreciation one. So,
It's the famous depreciation question. This is like super common. I'm surprised. It's almost so common that I thought people stopped asking because it was like so obvious that it was coming that like so many people just know it's coming. Um,
hmm.
so let me pull that up here. Yeah, this is I think a pretty basic one where you're basically trying to walk the person through what happens when there's what a $10 drop in depreciation expense or something.
Or yeah, like I think the one he said was increased, but yeah, either way.
Yeah,
Um,
let's see here. I think it's right here. It's got to be one of the top ones.
I remember I found it on the technical
Yeah,
guide.
I'm here. Yeah,
Or,
it's funny because I reviewed this exact question. I gave this question to one of the other candidates in a mock prep in one of these sessions, and like he
okay.
didn't do well. I'm like, you need to review that because that's super common. um,
Hmm.
and he was laughing. He's like, I know, I should know that one. So like, yeah, it'll be in here. I would review it but don't just review it for this exact question. Like, try to do a couple different versions of the reverse.
Right. Understand what's actually going on.
Yeah, understand what's actually going on so that you can do the math and the revert because it's a little confusing because it's like part of the drop in depreciation expense means you have more taxable you have more income, right? But
Right.
you don't have the full 10, you only have the 6 because your sum is taxed,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
only 6 flows through to net income, which comes at the top of your cash flow statement, right? But then you're adding back 10, so I think your cash flow from operator or your cash flow goes up 6 or something like
Hmm.
that. So, like you have to be able to walk through each statement
Hmm.
so that you're no matter what direction it goes and no matter what number they throw at you. Hopefully it's 10 because it's easier to do the math.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else that they ask? Or yeah, what else did they ask you?
The other one was the DCF, and then the last one was what makes a good comparable company, which I
So,
know is just like geography, size, distribution channels, customers, base,
well, yeah,
this,
industry the most, right? The most important.
and yeah.
Yeah, so like industry, yeah, just anything that has a similar footprint in terms of business model and like um yeah, geography, I'd say not as important, but yeah, it's important, but like more like what industries are selling into, the product, services, that type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, so for the DCF thing, be careful because there's lots of variations on that. They may ask you like, what's WACC? How do you calculate it?
Hmm.
Weighted average cost of capital, and you should understand how that's calculated. Like,
Hmm.
do you understand what that means? Weighted average cost of capital for a company?
We're
Yeah,
actually doing Cap M in my math class right now,
perfect.
so I have at least that part I have a better understanding of.
Okay, good.
Cost of equity.
So the whole point of getting to a weighted average cost of capital is so you know what to discount the future cash flows
Right.
company back to get a present value in a discounted cash flow valuation method.
Hmm.
So understand before you kind of get into the full, like you look at this formula, it looks super scary, right? It
Hmm.
looks crazy, but it's just basically getting the weighted average of equity and debt and the price of
Hmm.
equity, the price of debt, such that you're getting a weighted average for that cost.
Right.
So it's
Hmm.
like I think it can get overly like you look at the formula, you can get overly like you should step back and think conceptually what it means first, and then
Hmm.
look in pieces. So this first piece right here is basically the equity portion of the debt, equity, and the preferred times the cost of equity. So that's giving you like, so let's say it was like equity's 50%, debt was 50%, and this was 0. If this was like, let's say 10%, and the debt was 5%, and this was 50 and 50, it would be basically, so what did I say, 10% for that? It would be 50% ratio, sorry, 50% ratio of that whole capital structure, and then 10%. So that would be 5%, right? This whole thing would be 5%, plus the debt would still be 50%, because I said 50-50, and then it would be 5%, so it would be 2.5. So 5, 2.5, 7.5%, which theoretically makes sense. You're between 5 and 10. And it's a distribution, the weighted average is equal, so you come out at a weighted average cost of capital of 7.5%, which makes sense. Somebody like an Apple has a super low cost of debt. Or a large company, super stable cash flows, ton of cash. Their cost of debt's going to be really, really low.
Right.
So like that's why Apple finally just issued bonds a couple of years ago, because they're like, man, we could just get free money basically to do additional expansion and product development. So okay, so but be careful with the DCF. Understand like the nuances behind WACC and just the whole conceptual framework of going down from free cash flow all the way down to, or levered free cash flow and unlevering free cash flow and all that. All down. Do you feel like you have enough resources for that? Do you feel like
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I was just going to ask with the terminal value part, is it common for them to get into the details of like which method to use and which method's better for which situation? Or is it just good to know?
They typically won't ask you which is better, but you should be able to be like, what's common sense? So like there's an implied perpetuity growth rate. They should ask you like, would this be reasonable? Like it doesn't make sense for a company to be growing faster than the economy into perpetuity. So if you have like a 6 or 7% implied perpetuity growth rate, that makes no sense, because that means it's going to continue to just grow until it's a multi-trillion-dollar company bigger than any other company. And then the implied exit multiple is something where you can think of it more of like a private equity side, where you have a terminal value calculated from the perpetuity growth method. So basically, it's a way to think of like, okay, that final year, it's almost like you were to sell the company at like X amount, because that's what the transaction comps are saying. That's the value in year 5. You still discount that back, remember? Right. Still discount it back at year 5, even no matter at that exit multiple. But I don't think they're going to ask you like what's better. They may just ask you, they may just try to ask you, if I had a perpetuity growth rate of 6%, would that be fine? That's a little bit of a trick sometimes, and they'll be, that would make sense. Much over 3% doesn't really make sense, because eventually it would be, sorry about there's so many babies in this house right now. But like, yeah, if you hear it getting like going much over 3%, that should raise a red flag to you, just because it's basically saying that the company would grow into perpetuity forever at 5 or 6 or 7%, which is impossible. Right. Okay. Because it should be more than the entire world economy. One company. Okay, so for that, yes, definitely know like the nuances of the different types. Definitely know the nuances of how to calculate WACC and what it actually means. It's like the actual cost of borrowing money. Right. The cost of getting money. That's what all it is. Right. It's like what's their interest rate? How much are they getting charged to get money, blended between equity, meaning issuing shares, and debt, meaning taking out loans. Right. Okay. So if you know that, I'm feeling pretty good about the whole DCF thing. Fine. And definitely review in the tech, this part of the tech. Yes. In detail, and like make sure you really understand the nuances of it. Yes. Okay. So what else is they going to ask you? Do you think? Is that fair? That answer? Is that helpful? Like yes. Okay.
The only other question he said was just like, note what are the 3 valuation methods.
Some people ask you for 4.
Would the 4th one be sum of parts, or?
There's sometimes like liquidity. There's sometimes people have an LBO version, they say. But the 3, if they ask for 3, you basically are giving the comparables, the DCF precedent. But there is something called the LBO valuation here as well. Yes. So if somebody asks you what's 4, you don't want to like freeze deer in the headlights. Like that's
Hmm.
probably what they're referring to. But yes, some of
Okay.
the parts is one, LBO is another. That's typically it. That's
Hmm.
typically it.
Okay.
Some of the parts I usually don't hear about. It's usually comparable, always comparable
Hmm.
companies. Market valuation is just precedent
Hmm.
action, precedent transactions, and then, oh, sorry, market valuation is no, it's different. That's like based on multiples. If it's like a comparable company analysis, the DCF
Okay.
is we just went over.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's it. I would just definitely review this section in detail
Hmm.
so you're super comfortable with it.
Right.
That's it. It was just those five. Was that five?
Yeah, that's what he told me he was asked. So,
So pretty much down the pike. No craziness. How comfortable
yeah.
are you about talking about like LBOs?
I guess somewhat comfortable. I mean, I reviewed a lot of that stuff this summer, so I'm gonna brush up more on it this weekend.
Hmm.
Since
Do you
I,
know, actually, since this is a small M&A shop, maybe
Mhm.
better, do you understand, are they doing like sell side M&A, buy side M&A? Do you know the difference?
I'm not sure.
So did they say anything on their site about that?
Look, yeah,
Because
they do both.
they do both. So it'd be good to look at do they have tombstones on there saying the types of deals they've closed recently, like
Let's
transactions or deals?
see.
If they do, it'd be good to get a sense if like a lot of them are sell side or buy side,
Mm-hmm.
get a sense of the type of work they do. And then one thing, if I was a small shop, just, it's kind of in line with the what is investment banking.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting if they asked kind of the next layer of that and they said, okay, well, in an M&A process, what's a sell side M&A process look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like not being like, oh, I have no clue, like actually being able to say, well, on a sell side, you're hired to help sell either division or a company. So it's like, mapping out the buyer universe, and I never did strictly M&A, so I don't know. I was in private equity, I did restructuring.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's like, you're basically creating the whole universe, the buyer's universe, you're reaching out, you're collecting bids,
Mm-hmm.
indications of interest, then you go out, you do another round and basically try to get from the LOI to a actual basically deal done within
Mm-hmm.
ideally 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that those processes on a sell side M&A process, like step by
Mm-hmm.
step, and you can probably find some good stuff online for free too. And
Mm-hmm.
then if they do buy side as well.
And that's like decretion, or what is it? The DNA analysis. I forget what they stand for.
Uh,
Decretion and no, I'm
DNA,
blanking.
I'm not sure. Depreciation and something. Or are you saying like
No, I'm blanking on the words right now.
that's fine?
Mhm.
That's fine. I'm not the best person to ask about M&A, but there's definitely some sections in here. Um, I think there's a whole section on M&A here: stocks, along with interest, currencies, options, derivatives, mergers and acquisitions, right here.
Mhm.
Basic concepts. So there's a whole IB deal walkthrough, like what they do. So, why companies would want to merge, stuff like this. What do
Mhm.
bankers do during a sell side M&A? Perfect example here.
Okay.
So like know this stuff because this is
Mhm.
a little more relevant since you said they do a lot of M&A work.
Mhm.
Definitely review this section right here, especially the
Okay.
basic, at least the basic ones.
Mhm.
Ideally, do the advanced ones, and if you can grasp it. I don't think
Mhm.
anything in here is super, super tough, but let me know if
Okay.
anything's not clear
Mhm.
through it. But basically, focus on those 5 questions he gave you, and then do a little bit more on the M&A stuff, just to be.
Mhm.
And then let's talk a little bit about behaviorals because it sounds like it's going to be a lot about like just, hey, do I like this person or not?
Right.
Because it's two
That's what I
people.
think all that it is with the MD.
Yeah. The MD's gonna be like, hey, tell me what you do in your free time, like that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
it's gonna be probably a little more casual, and they want to make sure that they can envision like not being bored or like whatever because
Mhm.
you have a sense of humor, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I think it's important to, as much as you can, as a freshman, it's super hard, but just be like confident and
Right.
calm and
Mhm.
as comfortable as you can be in that room.
Right.
Um, so like you feel like belong. I guess in terms of your interest, what do you have down there on your resume?
I have. Um, Fashion journalism and photography, ultimate frisbee, and hot yoga.
Okay, so are you actually good at ultimate frisbee?
Kind of. I mean, I played in high school, and I've
Okay,
sort of joined a league in New York.
sort of. What does that mean? You kind of
Um,
go.
well, I'm in the process of it, kind of. So,
So
working
let
on
me let me do this with you because I think it's a good practice
it. Hmm.
of like just chatting with you about random things because
Hmm.
that's
I
really
have
what
one question first
yes.
about, so I know you had said what the interest, like be prepared for them to ask you about it. And so I was gonna put boxing on there because I like enjoy boxing
Hmm.
for fun, but it's not like I follow professional boxing, so I wouldn't want to be asked about that because that's not something that I would be knowledgeable about at all. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that, so is that a smart idea not to put it on there
You
then?
could say boxing gyms or something like that, or you could say
Uh-huh.
boxing. I don't know. You have yoga on there. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a boxing, I mean, some guys may really like that, but the problem is if they're really knowledgeable about boxing, like you said,
Right.
you're like, oh, did you see the Mayweather fight and the Pacquiao? And you're like, what? Like, no,
Right.
I have
Like
no
I'm
idea what you're
not
talking.
gonna know anything about that.
Yeah, so probably better not to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just be prepared for like, oh, so what do you do in your free time and stuff like that, and not
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I study. I network, which is the truth,
Right.
right? Like, I network on LinkedIn. You can say like I like to work out, and I have a lot of family in town, and blah blah blah. That's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to think what else could like help you stand out. I mean,
Hmm.
did hot yoga. What else was on there?
Ultimate frisbee and then fashion journalism and photography.
Yeah. So, did you work ever? Were you an intern ever at like a fashion photography or anything like that?
No.
What got you interested in that?
Um, I don't know in particular. I have friends that run like their own, I guess like small like fashion blog type things, but I know that's such a generic thing, but I kind of help them with that. So, but it's nothing
What do
big
you
at
do?
all.
What do you do for them? The actual
Like taking
photography?
pictures.
Do you have
So,
a special camera? Do you have a good camera?
nothing too special
DSLR?
in Nikon,
DSLR?
but
Is it a DSLR or like do you know a lot
a DSLR.
of
Hmm.
um yeah, I mean just it'd be good to have a little bit more of like details around those
Hmm.
interests. Like,
And
oh I
then I'm on the fashion magazine at my school too. I forgot
yeah,
about
but
that.
just like more details around like the type of photography, like fashion photography, great, but like you said, bring that story out a little bit. Well, like so, a lot of my friends in high school were started these fashion blogs that were getting popular. They needed help, and so I just got into like helping them with photography, and I kind of fell in love with it.
Hmm.
So literally saying it like that.
Okay.
Like instead of feeling like you don't have to apologize for it, it's something you enjoy doing. They're just trying to get to know
Hmm.
you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Hmm.
be comfortable in it and own it.
Right.
And then in terms of the other stuff, so like they may ask you something like, "What do you do in your free time?" Do you have a
Hmm.
good answer for that? I mean, it can be your interests, obviously, but
Hmm.
anything else you would add in there?
I guess that's where I could say I enjoy boxing.
Yeah,
Add that in there.
yeah.
Um, as generic as it sounds, reading.
What type of books do you read?
Nonfiction.
Like, what's your favorite book recently?
Um, my favorite one recently, should I say like the name of it even if no one would know what it
Yeah,
is?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So it's called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, and it's written by someone who worked in the funeral home industry for several years, and it's about her experiences working and embalming and then going to school for that
Interesting.
and everything that she kind of realized about death and how we approach death.
And how did you get into that? It seems pretty dark.
It sounds dark from the description, but
Yeah.
it actually is kind of optimistic at the end, and
Okay.
it it basically shows how in our society we take the wrong approach to death
Mm,
and how we're too scared of it, and because of that, that has other implications on our economy and on our health.
interesting.
Hmm.
Sounds like a good book.
Hmm. Very interesting.
So that's great. Like that type of detail is awesome. And
Hmm.
I have one or two other books you're comfortable talking about the
Okay.
books and that you like. Because
Hmm.
those there, that's great. I think that's really
Okay.
interesting. And anyone who's at all intellectually curious and enjoys reading as well will all of a sudden really like you.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And you don't
hmm
know, this MD may have loved nonfiction, doesn't get to read now, or maybe he reads every weekend. You know,
hmm
it's like, oh, have you read this? And then boom, you guys connect on that. You don't know.
hmm
Um, awesome. Okay, and then trying to think what else. So, how's the other stuff going, like the networking and the you know the
hmm
the other kind of gauntlet
That's been
stuff?
going really well. So,
Hmm.
um, so you had said like last time we talked that I should start reaching out just through LinkedIn because of how much more efficient it is. So I've been doing that, and I've been getting a lot of responses through that. So a lot of the people have responded right away to my messages, and I've already had a lot of calls and coffee chat meetings, like already had them or have them set up. And then there are other people who have, I guess, accepted my
Yeah.
um, request to connect, but then we haven't actually spoken yet. So like they never replied to my message.
How many
So
did
I
you?
guess those would be the people I reach out to over email then.
Yeah, and how many did you send? Are you using Right Inbox or Boomerang or one of these kind of reminder things to start?
hmm Right. So I have the free version, and then once I start sending out more emails, you had said I should get the paid version.
Yeah,
So I'm going to start that once I start sending out more emails.
yeah, I would definitely do that because then
hmm
they won't slip through the cracks. You know what I mean?
hmm
When you're
Right.
when you're doing that. So, what about specifically? So it looks you're up to 309 connections. What were you at before?
hmm
100 something?
I think it was 140
Yeah,
around
not
there.
bad, not bad.
hmm
So that's great. I'd like to see
hmm
that at 500 next time we talk. So you get the
Working
500,
on it.
you
Yeah.
get the 500 plus. It sounds silly, but like just having somebody having heard your name and seen your face the second
hmm
time around, like when you actually come to them and give them an update on, hey, I got a spring internship at this private equity lending shop, or I got a spring. So this other boutique bank that I got to say, it's going to be almost impossible for you to land this one. I'd be very shocked
hmm
because
Right.
there's other juniors going up against you.
Or it's mostly other sophomores, I think, who
Most
are
of, but still,
interviewing.
you're like a year behind.
hmm
You have
Right.
a year.
It'll
Uh,
just be good interview experience, I
it'd be
think.
great. It'd be a
hmm
great experience, and just trying to get like comfortable in the interview room with people
Right.
like you may not have a lot in common with, and just trying to make that connection and getting
Mhm.
really good at that.
Right.
Um, Fashion, just conservative,
hmm
similar to your LinkedIn. Well,
Right.
you know fashion anyways, so you're fine. You'd be
hmm
surprised. You'd be surprised that some people walk into an interview with. Um,
I mean,
uh,
I interned this past summer too, so I'm familiar.
Okay, good. Any other questions like on the interview itself? So it sounds like it's just you're gonna probably meet both no matter what. Um,
hmm
is that the case?
Yes, I think so.
Do you know how many people are going through it?
No,
Okay.
I only know of one other. Have talked to one other person who's interviewing. It's a
And
sophomore.
how far away is this from where you are?
Oh, it's not far at all. It's just over in Midtown East, so I can get there in a matter of like 15 minutes.
All right, so leave at least an hour before.
Right. hmm
Try to get there like half hour before,
hmm
um, at least, so that you can just settle yourself, look through just read your resume. Like you should
hmm
know your resume by heart at this point, but just
hmm
so that you can get all the bullets. The other
Right.
thing I wanted to talk to you about is if they veer off the technical questions, and the MD specifically may
hmm
more like he may just want to have a conversation, but
hmm
if he wants to go more behavioral or fit, have you prepped at all? Like, did we talk about stories and framing stories for different types of
Um,
answers?
I think we had talked about the basic questions like greatest weakness, greatest strength, a
Yeah.
couple of those things, but
Did
nothing
I
deeper
tell you?
than
Did I tell you about how to like structure like different past experiences in framing those? So like the way I
that.
think about this is like you have think of having like a bag full of stories, okay? Like let's say seven stories. So
No. hmm
Grace, you go into this interview armed with seven stories.
hmm
As soon as they start asking you a question, whether it's a greatest weakness, greatest strength, group conflict question, whatever, you
hmm
immediately start thinking into your bag. You think, which one should I pull? And
Right.
what's important is you know which one to pull to leave you some wiggle room, because one story could be good for like two kind of similar questions.
hmm
Another one might be good, but it's good to so when somebody asks you why should we hire you and not all the other incredibly bright and qualified people here? What you don't want to do is go and say, well, I'm super hardworking. Yeah, there's other Ivy League kids, but I had to work really hard to get here, and I'm just gonna, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And it's just really generic. I'd
Right.
much rather hear you say, I'm a really hard worker. For example, when I was at blah blah blah, and you go into one of your stories,
Mm-hmm.
and so you give a 30-second, 1 minute spiel, and then well, tell me more about that. So then you kind of go into the STAR um,
Mm-hmm.
framework, which is stars. S is situation.
Mm-hmm.
T is what was your task. A
Mm-hmm.
is what action did you take, and R is the result. So
Oh, okay. I've heard of that.
you've heard of
Mm-hmm.
that. It's
I
really,
think so.
really
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Like, so what I think might be helpful for you over this weekend is to try and think to your previous experiences, whether that was at take a couple from John Hopkins, take a couple from right now in your first semester,
Mm-hmm.
like projects, whatever it may
Mm-hmm.
be. What like at least one or two stories talking about like work ethic, balancing like a lot of things at once.
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to tell them you're something. You want to show them you're something with a story.
Right.
Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? So
Yes.
that's why you want to think of everything they ask you. You should not immediately thinking of adjectives for yourself. You should be immediately thinking towards what story am I going to tell to
Mm-hmm.
illustrate that about myself.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay, so like I think that would be a worthwhile little exercise where you're like, hey, standing up in front of all those people. I remember that was on your resume. At
Mm-hmm.
John Hopkins, like, what did that show
Mm-hmm.
you? What are you working on? Like, what do you need the most improvement on? And you could maybe even say public speaking is something I still feel like I could improve upon.
Mm-hmm.
I know in banking, if you ever want to get really more senior, it's all about client facing work. It's about being able
Right.
to sell. And I mean, I'm young, but it still feel like there's, you could always improve that. It's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm working on. And that's a great answer because it's like everyone hates public speaking. Like it's
Yeah.
never, not everyone, but like some people
Mm-hmm.
love it. But, even for myself, who I did really well in public speaking, it's still nerve wracking. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one. Be careful, like the weaknesses, like I'm overly detail oriented and I always do want to do all the work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay, but
Right.
don't it's more important that you come across as genuine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You might
Right.
actually have more success at landing the job at being like something super like authentic. Like when they ask that, be
Mm-hmm.
like, what, why, what's your greatest weakness? Be like, well, I just feel like I'm kind of an introvert still and I'm a little bit nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you said that, like they'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay,
Right.
cool. Like if she actually has self-awareness. Like if you're saying
Mm-hmm.
like you're a little shy and stuff, then it almost like makes the person feel more attached to you versus like some perfectly structured answer of I work so hard, I'm so detail oriented that sometimes I have a tough time. Like, do
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like a fake
Yeah,
weakness.
that that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So like just being authentic with people, I think can help you build that connection. But it's
Mm-hmm.
still important. Like so I say that, but it's still important to prep.
Mm-hmm.
And so to
Yeah.
have those stories there so that when so you can focus on your delivery and not what you're saying or what you're
Mm-hmm.
going to say.
Okay.
Does that
That
make
makes
sense?
mm-hmm.
Because like a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm gonna wing it because I'm good. Like I just am a natural and blah blah blah. And they'll come in and they'll get a question and they'll be, man, that's tough. I don't know. I'm not really sure about that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
should have been ready for that question,
Right.
or at least some sort of derivative on it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, tell me, do you feel like you're ready for those?
I think so. And I think like this weekend, I'm
You,
gonna do like a little bit of mock interview prep with my friend in
that'd be great.
exchange for help with her homework. So,
Okay, good. Do you have I would videotape yourself on that and just for yourself, just for your own
mm-hmm.
to watch it after. Just set up a
Mm-hmm.
camera. It'll be painful, but just do it. You may notice something with your hands or your head or your where you're looking.
Mm-hmm.
You may notice something looking at yourself after.
Okay.
So definitely do that. The other thing I'd say is, um, so do you have enough stories right now? What would you say? Like what are your stories right now? I'm pulling up your resume. Like I can try to
Mm-hmm.
help you come up with some right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I
then
can think of one that wouldn't be on my resume.
yep.
Um, in high school, I had to do in a group of three people, we had to make 90-minute presentations during the school year.
Yeah.
Um, basically they called them like living papers. So we had to develop our own thesis and then present in different creative ways all of our research around that. And it was like a history English thing. I don't know, but I'm not sure how to present that correctly because
Well,
they
what
were
was unique about that
the
situation? What was crazy about that situation, or what was different?
I guess having to create our own ideas and then present them verbally and through action and like through actions. I'm not sure. Or present them physically and verbally rather than just through writing a paper like you usually would.
So it's like about public speaking, or it's about like being like forced to deliver a presentation in a way that was different or something?
Both of those. Mhm.
So so you're saying you had to present it? It was like a something you had to present in front of the class?
Yes.
So I don't know if that's like super
Hmm.
unique.
Hmm.
If you're telling me that there was like a conflict with somebody in the group or
Hmm.
something, maybe, or
Okay.
like, do you know what I mean? Because like they're not gonna ask you like, tell me about a group project you did. They're gonna
Right.
ask you a harder question, like, tell me about a group project where there was some conflict, or like, tell me about
Right.
a time where you were working and you disagree with your boss. What did you do?
Hmm. Okay.
So like those are the kind of,
That makes sense. Yeah, and that makes sense now that you say
you
that.
know what I mean? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, be ready for the behaviorals around those. And so like the ones with like working hard, I think you should talk about a time in your life where you were balancing like lots of different things at once, where you were working like 80 whatever hour weeks with school, with this, with that. Uh,
Hmm.
you can talk about, being valedictorian. You don't have to say that, but in high school, how you were
Hmm.
balancing, um, AP classes with um, being part of this scholarship, this society and whatnot. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Did you play
Right.
sports?
I helped start the Ultimate Frisbee team.
There you go. So, starting the ultimate frisbee team, keeping
And
your
then
grades
I
up.
did other things too. So,
Okay. So, but like, just, I don't know if that's the time in your life where you feel like the most busy. Maybe it's now. Uh,
hmm.
but get identifying that part and talking about how you had to balance like literally 10 different things.
Hmm.
You can talk about like a time when you had like maybe this midterm maybe coming up, midterms or whatnot, and you had 5 interviews 1 week, whatever it is. You want to be able to kind of give them a visual of you working through a very tough schedule, because that gives them
Hmm.
confidence that if there is an 80-hour week, or there is a crazy week, you can handle it.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Would it work to, it's, I guess, just for one of those types of stories?
Yeah.
So I have, I guess, ever since, I guess the most recent time was junior year of high school, but like I've had different hospitalizations, and I even through those I've been able to keep up my grades and stay on track of all my schoolwork and maintain honors and that
Yes,
kind
although
of thing.
I'd be careful, because if they think it's a serious hospitalization and it might
Hmm.
like hinder your job performance,
Right.
or if you're out, I don't know if I would disclose that, to be
Okay.
honest.
Mhm.
You could say if it was a temporary, do you think it's an ongoing thing, or was it a temporary thing?
No, it was past
Okay,
things.
so if it's a passing, they just might be really curious what it is. You don't have to share. I'm
Hmm.
just saying there might be that curious, if you're open with them and you're comfortable sharing it with the
Hmm.
that I think it's more powerful.
Okay.
Um,
Just because that, I guess, like that my work with Hopkins originates too from having an illness when I was younger. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and it
I guess
ties
it
it
all.
all together. It ties it together why you had that tie there and all that stuff. So I think it's awesome. Um, yeah, so I think honestly, the more genuine, the more authentic, the more like passionate you can be about your past and what you did, but illustrating like the projects you did, talking about why you did that and the challenges that arose during it, and how you're a team
Hmm.
player and how you just try to work through it and communicate, how you always try to be respectful if you disagree with somebody, and try to work through problems.
Hmm.
I think you want to have a story around that. You don't want to say it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Hmm.
saying it, but like it'd be so much more powerful if you told me, for example, when I had to, do when I was running the Hopkins Children's Magazine or whatever, or when
Hmm.
I was authoring this article, or when I was contributing to these initiatives um, to improve patient performance. I had to, talk with a lot of things, and some people disagreed with how I did this and that, whatever.
Mhm.
Show them the conflict and the resolution, the fact that you're able to navigate those things.
Okay.
Um, and so you may have to dig a little bit to think, you may have to think a little bit
Mhm.
to those, but those stories are important because they're not just going to want to hear you're like, yeah, and I did this and then I did that and it's all hunky dory and everything's been great.
Mhm.
They want to hear about the conflict. They want to hear about the struggle. They want to hear, and
Mhm.
those stories naturally we're more drawn to,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want, I think would be a useful exercise for you
Mhm.
would be to create a Google Doc and you can share it with me
Mhm.
and name each of your stories. Be like the Hopkins council or ambassador story,
Mhm.
the sickness, my youth sickness story.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know if you want to integrate them into one or split them into two, but think about that.
Mhm.
But really
Okay.
about what the situation was, what was your task, what was the action and the result,
Mhm.
I think will help you. So like 4 bullets,
Okay.
summarizing, not writing out all the whole story,
Right.
type it out because it's going to make it really not genuine, but just understanding those 4 bullets on each of those.
Mhm.
Let's just try go for five.
Okay.
Okay. Go for five
Mhm.
now. And then eventually when you're doing like full-time investment banking recruiting, we'll take those five, probably
Mhm.
modify them a little bit, make them a little bit tighter, and then also maybe even go to 7.
Mhm.
You're really ready
Okay.
for the tricky behavioral questions that they
Yeah.
give you. Um, Sometimes it's like tough. You're like trying to fabricate, like you're like, I don't know, I didn't have any real conflicts. I'm a chill person. Like I get along with everybody. Like for me, it was tough. Like
Mhm.
to do that. But I think it's an important skill
Mhm.
to struct to the behaviorals, and people underestimate the behaviorals. Like if I just get the technical questions, no, it's about being able to show them, not tell them, show them that you
Mhm.
have skills that are relevant to the job. So the job is going to be hardworking, right? You have to show that you're
Mhm.
hardworking. You have to show that you're diligent, detail oriented. You have to be able to
Mhm.
show that you're like can handle multiple deadlines and be like not stressed out. And then you got to show that like you're comfortable speaking to in front of people. They can put you in front of clients, and
Mhm.
and I think the speaking that's easy because you have like you've presented in front of people. You've been in leadership positions. So that's kind of an easy story one. The harder one will be like, I don't know, maybe not. The harder one will be like balancing the multiple timelines, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Because like
Okay.
remember, you're going up against some people who have really high GPAs, like maybe not a 3.8 or 4.0, but maybe they have a 3.7, 3.8, and they're in varsity
Mhm.
athletic.
Right.
The athlete putting in 20, 30 hours a week there.
Mhm.
So then they can
Right.
easily talk to that, intuit it.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
and it's tough to beat somebody, if that other person across from the table them is an athlete, it's really going to resonate with them.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
so that's all. Anything else as you go into it? I mean, I think the best thing is just to really not expect anything and
Mhm.
go in with a big smile and like
Right.
just confidence because you really have
Mhm.
nothing to lose. You're so young, and this is like just an incredible opportunity to be given to interview with them.
Mhm.
Um, you may want to even be aggressive.
Mhm.
So I'm saying like if you want a shot at landing it, like I don't see if you play it down the middle, meaning if you go in and you do your stories well and you answer the technicals right, and there's going to be another kid who answers the technicals right, and they just I hate to say it, but he's a guy and he relates better with the guys who are interviewing him, and boom,
Mhm.
the job because he's a junior
Yeah.
or he's going to be or a sophomore, whatever.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, she's next year. We'll get her next year. So like to me, it might make sense to say something along the lines at the end of. I'm kind of debating in my head because I'm thinking, should you be aggressive and be like, I'd really appreciate the opportunity to work with
Mhm.
you, and I just wanted to say that before.
Mhm.
And like some people, like really just directly looking them in the eye and
Mhm.
just letting them know that this is something you really want.
Mhm.
Um, I think can help, but it's
Oh,
only if you can do it genuinely.
right. Mhm.
'Cause honestly, I don't think you have a lot to lose.
Mhm. Right.
It's almost like if your odds are, let's say 10% of landing this because it's one slot and you're probably going up against at least 10 other people
Probably.
and they're
Um,
all probably sophomores or a lot of them are.
yeah, probably.
So like if your odds are that low, why just do the same thing that everyone else is doing?
Mhm.
It's like you need a higher variance. You need a higher variance move where you're like direct at the end.
That
Uh,
makes sense. Mhm.
but only if you feel like you can't do it if it's going to come across as super awkward and like,
Hmm. Right.
you know, what I mean? You got to know your own personality. Like I got to
Right.
a place after a lot of practice where I was comfortable doing that,
Hmm.
especially if you feel like you've done a really good job in the interview and like you've nailed it. Then it's
Hmm.
almost like, okay, so I'm going to start for you guys, right? Like I'm in, right?
Hmm.
Like when do I start? You know, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you'll get there with a lot of reps. So I think for next time, let's assume this doesn't go right. I'm going to have my fingers crossed and hope you get it. But you have this other PE credit job
Hmm.
essentially, and as you're networking and getting on more calls, um, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of during the year internships.
Yeah, a lot of Fordham students do
Like,
that. So I know a sophomore who's already had 4 internships.
yeah, that's crazy. Like, do
Hmm.
that. That's not.
Yeah.
That's such a huge opportunity.
Hmm.
The one thing you got to be careful of, it's not just filler and just junk. Like,
Hmm.
you can get the ones where you do any sort of meaningful work or any sort of analytical work.
Hmm.
It's like gold on your
Hmm.
resume, you know? So we'll just keep that in mind. Like, you don't necessarily want to go to like the first private wealth management internship you're going to get that's like,
Right.
you know, just database work and
Hmm.
just like cleaning up contact records and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Because then it's just, I mean, it shows you can do a lot of tedious work, I guess is good. But it's not,
Especially during the school year, my time's worth something also going towards
it is
schoolwork. So,
towards schoolwork and then also towards just meeting more people and talking
hmm.
to people so that you're just really knowledgeable. So like that, what is investment banking question? If you've spoken
Hmm.
with enough people, if you've read enough WSO, if you've gone through enough stuff, you should know that like inside and out.
Hmm.
Like you
Right.
should, oh, and there's this, and there's this branch, and there's this division, and there's
Hmm.
that division, and that's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, like this girl, she knows her investment banking, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so that'll, and then, well, okay, walk me through a sell side process or walk me through a buy side process. You're like,
Hmm.
well, first you do this, and then you do that, and then you do this at a university, you do some comps, and then you blah blah, and
Hmm.
then you collect all the LOIs, and then you go through, you try to figure out who the finalists, the final rounds are. Like knowing all that, that's not that really shows that like you're not just targeting investment banking because it's like what your friend's doing. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Right.
You've actually been looking at it for a year, or you know, in this case, I don't know, 6 months. But any questions, kind of leading anything else leading up into the one thing I did notice on your resume, you did mention valuation, three-statement model, merger modeling, and stuff. Um, you said self-taught. I would really put an hour
Okay.
limit in there. Just quantify it.
Hmm.
Self-taught over 50 plus hours using da da da, or whatever
Hmm.
it is. If it's 30 hours, that's fine, but just put a number in there.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've spent 200 hours. I don't know if you spent 10 hours. If you've only spent 10 hours, maybe leave it off. But if you spent over
Hmm.
like 20 or 30 hours, I'd put it in there.
It's probably like somewhere around 30,
Okay.
I guess.
So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, okay. Any other questions about that? And that's just for going forward as you network. I just,
Hmm.
that's another little tweak to your resume as I look at the last one.
Hmm. I don't think I have any other questions. I said one thing I was just gonna
Yeah.
tell you. So I went to Fordham has this diversity and inclusion night. So it's basically like a lot of women, like minority students, and they had representatives from all the different banks. And the one of the diversity recruiting people at RBC actually noticed the fashion journalism part and had like reached out to me beforehand. He said that's what made like me stand out or something, and so he really likes me and is like gonna um, get me like let me in early or something about their program next year. So their women's program.
The interests, they pay off.
Hmm. So yeah, I was just gonna add that because that was good.
Yeah, so like yeah, I mean it's because that, you know, think of the poor person on the other end of looking through hundreds of resumes.
Hmm.
The interests are the only interesting thing.
Right.
Like, oftentimes. So it's like oftentimes people go like this and they go right down to the bottom. Okay, that's cool. And then they read it and then they go up, you know, and they'll look
Hmm.
at like scan GPA and, you know, school major, all that good stuff. And then that's why the numbers are so powerful. That's why quantification is so powerful in a resume
Hmm.
because it really just makes it so much easier to like believe, number one, and number two, just like it adds so much more legitimacy. You're not like, I led this initiative on the collaboration of this international
Hmm.
conference, and then people are like, what the hell does that mean?
Hmm.
No, I helped book 323 people with 33% increase over the prior. Like
Hmm.
That's tangible. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
so the second bullet's much better than the first. So I think you have that. I think it's very strong.
Hmm.
What you have here. So I think you're gonna be in good shape, especially if you can get a spring, fingers crossed, a spring
Hmm.
internship.
Right.
Anything else? Any other places you think? Do you think anywhere else, like any of the people you're reaching out to on LinkedIn, would be open to that in New York?
I'm not sure. Most of the people I've talked to, I guess, are from bigger places or places that, or other people have told me have said like we do take interns, but only juniors. So,
What
and
about
like
it?
without me even bringing it up.
What about a filter looking at boutiques? Are you able to on LinkedIn do a filter of um, New York investment banking, like or like 1 to 10 employees? I think you can do that.
Okay. I
Um,
hadn't thought about that, but that, yeah, that'd be a good.
because like that's the realistic um, target market, right? And
Hmm.
so let me share my screen. Let's see if I can do this. If I go under search, tell me if you have all this. Companies. No. Search people. Do you have? Oh, here we go. Location, New York, Greater New York. See, you can't do it based on that. And under the normal search, LinkedIn search, I don't think you can do it based on company size. See
Hmm.
that?
Right.
Do you have Sales Navigator? You have to pay
No.
that. So if you have this, check this out. Advanced search, search for leads, and you go industry, investment banking. You do company filters, company headcount. You can do
Oh,
self-employed
okay.
1 to 10, even do 11 to 50, and then you
Hmm.
do just start smaller.
Is this through one of the other premium levels where it's like recruiting or something?
Yeah, it's like sales now, but like this, look at how much this is.
Hmm.
Because I honestly think, and then you could do title, CEO, partner. You can do uh, managing director. You could do vice president, and then you could do associate even. Now, what else can we do? First name, school. Just check this really quick for them. 25. Have you talked to him?
I don't think so.
Roth Capital Partners, Univis Securities, Assistant Vice President. Kendall from Jane's Capital Partners. FinPro. I will try to send you this list,
Okay.
but this is, I think, it might make sense for you to invest in this
Hmm.
because you're going to be able to do a really nice tailored searches. And um, even if you go outside of Fordham and you do something like company,
I was gonna say Fordham's Business School has a different
yeah,
um,
what
LinkedIn, so that's Fordham Gabelli.
Belly?
Hmm. So it's the second result when you type Fordham, it'll say Gabelli, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that one usually comes up with more.
26. But this is all just remember, we're small.
Hmm.
So Casper, Laura, North Point Advisors. They're San Francisco,
Hmm.
but is she in New York? San Francisco. It makes sense to talk to her.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, tell me how much this is.
Okay.
Um, I think we have it. I think it's like $60 a month or something.
Okay.
It's not cheap.
So
But
is it the recruiting one?
yeah, it's called Sales Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
It basically gives you an additional way to like find leads. So like this is the normal people filter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so you can do schools, but you can't do like size of school. So like I think it's much more beneficial for you to even look at like these small company headcounts
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to waste your time going to like the bulge brackets, the middle markets. You're going to just be looking for those
Right.
boutiques.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, geography. I want to just say New York. It's just 20. So like, but even if you broaden it, you could do other like small schools
Mm-hmm.
and use that as like, okay, so like let me think of another small school. Like Baruch or I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
I've been reaching out to a lot of people that I've found through filter searches for high schools in Maryland near me.
Perfect.
And I've gotten a lot of responses that way.
Yeah, because you're using that as a specific
Mm-hmm.
kind of link. Um, you could, yeah, with region, you could even say Maryland. What if you went back and did an internship in Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Look at this, 99.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably going to be much less competitive. Oh, but you can't, that
Right.
has to be the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be the summer, but that could
Right.
start working on that.
There is one person I've talked with at a boutique bank in Baltimore
Hmm.
who had mentioned reaching out to her in January about interning.
Perfect. So I hope that's on your reminder list.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I will remember to tell you. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this is powerful. I mean, you can do the Maryland investment bank, but you can't do this boutique,
hmm
which could really make you much more efficient.
hmm
Making it only specific things. Although, to be honest, if you're going to be hitting up a ton of people, it might be enough to go location in Maryland and then investment banking. Let me see how many people show up. Let's see here. But that's a great idea. Like just using because Maryland's not like there's not a ton of banks there, right?
No.
So it's
And
good.
most of them are around Baltimore, so.
Yeah, see, this is 789. So it's a little bit the other one was just 99 because it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But like think of the difference. Like you have to go through 789
Uh-huh.
things versus only go through 100 on the other ones, and the 100 are potentially like RBC, like they have a very structured recruiting process. Obviously, Credit Suisse.
Right.
Um, to give it some thought, are you taking out loans right now for mine?
No.
You're not? Okay. Are you working on the side at all?
No.
All right. Okay, good. Um, but like Stiefel, M&T, like any of these would be great, but I think a lot of them have structure. They're gonna be like, sorry, we only take juniors.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you talk to somebody at like I know this guy, I know Kyle, for example, and he works at like this tiny Kyle Jefferson I know, Chesapeake, like that's a tiny little investment bank, and they'd probably be happy to take you unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing that I think if you use these filters, I mean, it might be something where you can just go through and any like Evercore, you just ignore these big ones,
Mm-hmm.
and you talk to Brent at Trafalgar, you talk
Mm-hmm.
to not even Oppenheimer, Brooks Investment Group. That sounds smaller. I haven't heard of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a few firms in Baltimore that I've talked to a few people at.
Good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like what else could we do besides just like location? So location, you did the female minority conference, which is great. Sounds like you got
Mm-hmm.
a really strong lead there. Is there anybody else from that conference that you spoke to that you feel like you had a lead or no?
Not
Right.
really. A few of the people that I met, not at the job fair part, but just otherwise, worked for bigger banks. So
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are going to have the more structured processes.
Like talk to us next year. We'll do a sophomore thing.
Yeah.
It's never bad to be early.
hmm Yeah, everyone always just says like apply for the sophomore women's program.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. And you will next year.
mhm,
You will
right.
to a lot of them. Um, but yeah, it'd be great to get something. I mean, if you can somehow land something relevant spring, and even not at spring, but something back in Baltimore that's relevant around banking,
hmm
you're like a shoe in for I bet a lot of those programs
hmm
because a lot of people won't have anything freshman summer that's
hmm
this targeted.
hmm And I was gonna ask, so for this summer, I have a family friend who's works in wealth management at RW Baird,
Yep.
and he had talked about maybe like giving my resume to some of the people he works with.
Hmm.
But would it be better to work in banking even
Yes.
for a smaller name?
Yes,
That okay.
it would, but that would be a great internship. Like, don't turn that down. Like,
Hmm.
I would just try to slow play it a little bit.
Right.
Because if you can get into banking, and that's why it's like that's why timing matters. Because like you don't want to when you get an offer that's good. Like the most important thing is you get a financial related internship, financial
Hmm.
service related internship in your freshman summer. So that will
Hmm.
get there to be awesome. But it's in wealth management, right?
Hmm.
So it's not, and that's very very common. Like freshman
Right.
summer, you're doing like a wealth management, and then sophomore, you're doing like oftentimes another wealth management, and then junior,
Hmm.
some banking one. Um, so don't feel like at all that's a bad option. That's a great
Hmm.
option.
Okay.
You have a lot going for you because you're starting freshman year.
Okay.
I feel bad for the other guys. Like they're doing well. They've landed some great stuff.
Hmm.
But it's like it was more stressful because it was like
Hmm.
second, you know?
More of a time crunch.
Exactly. So for you, I think your time crunch is like just trying to get yourself into the best position. I think if you're able to land a boutique banking internship, I think by the time your junior summer rolls around, I think you're going to be in play for the bulge brackets.
Hmm.
And that's what I like. Or even, you know, don't quote me on it, but potentially even private equity.
Hmm.
But that really depends how much you go after it. You know, if
Hmm.
you keep this pace up where you're like connecting and talking and through your first 2 years of school,
Hmm.
a lot of great things are going to come. You're going to have a
Hmm.
lot of options. So I think just keep that up. Don't let that slip. Like just always just be like, okay, I'm going to go put in 2 hours of networking like now.
Right.
And if you have the budget to try and make your search a little bit more targeted towards banking boutiques in
Hmm.
Baltimore, banking boutiques in New York,
Hmm.
um, and you could even start by like if you do the sales nav, get the cheapest one, whatever, $68 a month, and then you like start with like boutique banks and do like the 1 to 5 person shops, like the tiny ones, and
Right.
then just literally go through the pay and however many there are, and just message all the female bankers
Hmm.
because you may have you're probably gonna have a higher hit rate
Right.
because they're like, oh, I see myself in her, and you know, like I
Hmm.
was like
Right.
that. Do you know what I mean? And you can
Hmm.
start with that if you're pressed for time. But I'd
Hmm.
like you to get through all of them if you can.
Hmm.
You
But you
know,
also don't want to reach out to everyone at the same firm
not
at
the
once.
same thing, but I mean these a lot of
Hmm.
these are like 1 to 5 people.
Right. True.
So it's not a big risk. But yeah, I think you're in great shape. I'm very curious to hear how your interview goes on Monday. It's like
Hmm.
your first banking interview, right?
Right. Hmm.
Sort of like you might actually be asked the valuation questions and all that stuff. So that'll be a great experience for you. Just try to remember go in like without anything to lose and just
Hmm.
because there's no expectations. I don't expect you to get it.
Right.
If you do, it's just cherry on the top. It's awesome. Like it's
Hmm.
super great start. But if you don't,
Hmm.
it's also like, well, yeah, of course you didn't. Like if life was that easy, you know, like everyone would do it. So
I was shocked to even get an offer for an interview. So.
yeah, I mean, well, it goes to say like your resume is really strong. It looks really
Hmm.
solid on paper. So like just going in and being personable is probably more important than like being perfect on the technicals, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. And just
Right.
like open to learning why investment banking, why do you want to do that? Really,
Hmm.
really focusing on you just wanting to learn and being around smart people and think it's a great opportunity for yourself. And
Hmm.
you know that from all the people you've spoken with, and you can be like, I spoke with the people here and here and here. They all just harp on the fact that it's just an amazing learning opportunity and it's a great platform whether you want to stay in banking or potentially go corporate finance or other
Hmm.
stuff. Like it's just it leaves you so many options because you
Hmm.
develop such a strong skill set. Focusing on that and really harping on it, like that's and you're passionate about it and the way you deliver it is
Hmm.
genuine, I think will resonate really well with them.
Okay.
So maybe we'll leave. I don't know. Maybe we'll leave it on that. But
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else that I can help answer before I know Monday's?
I think so.
Okay. Well, have fun too. Remember to smile.
Yes.
Okay, because I know it can be
Yeah.
stressful and
Hmm.
don't let the opportunity like you know take you away from the big picture because you're gonna have lots of at bats. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna be too worried going into it. I know it's just a good experience. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Well, good luck. Keep me up to date.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, Patrick at wallstreetoasis.com. And until next time.